The ballroom sparkled like an open jewel case, crystal chandeliers throwing light over champagne towers and polished marble floors. Nearly 200 guests in tailored suits and couture dresses mingled beneath the glow, all pretending their presence was about generosity rather than influence. Nathan stood off to the side, his back straight, eyes moving steadily across the room the way training never let him stop. He watched Olivia glide through the crowd in her white silk gown, smiling politely, shaking hands with people whose laughter was a little too loud and whose interest always came with expectations tied to her family's wealth. Then something caught his attention. A waiter cutting through the crowd awkwardly, shoulders rigid, movements too deliberate. His gaze wasn't on the guests or the path ahead but fixed on Olivia's champagne glass before it even reached her hand. The glass touched her fingers. She smiled at someone nearby and lifted it toward her lips. Nathan didn't hesitate. He crossed the room in 4 long strides. No chance to warn her, no time to explain. He seized her wrist, yanked her toward him, and kissed her with sudden force, desperate and urgent, pulling the champagne from her mouth into his own. The room fell into stunned silence. Olivia shoved him away, fury flashing in her eyes as her hand rose instinctively to strike him, but Nathan already felt it, the bitter metallic taste, the chemical burn spreading across his tongue. Poison, clear and undeniable. She thought he'd lost his mind. In reality, he just saved her life by trading it for his own. Nathan Hayes had spent 3 years driving luxury vehicles for powerful people, and he'd learned one fundamental truth in that time: the wealthy didn't see the drivers. They argued with lawyers, whispered into phones, broke down after bad news, all while he sat 3 feet away, invisible. He preferred it that way. Being unnoticed paid the bills and kept his daughter safe. Olivia Cartwright, however, had been different from the beginning. She greeted him every morning, asked about traffic, noticed when he swapped out the air freshener in the town car. Small acknowledgements that made the job feel like employment rather than servitude. He'd started driving for her 2 months earlier, after her father's sudden death, officially a heart attack, according to the certificate. Nathan had questions, but questions didn't cover medical bills, so he stayed quiet and showed up on time. At 29, Olivia had inherited Cartwright Industries, instantly becoming one of the youngest billionaires in the country. The press adored her, her relatives merely tolerated her, and someone, Nathan was increasingly sure, wanted her dead. The charity gala was supposed to be routine. Drop her off, wait in the garage, drive her home. Simple. But after they arrived, she'd asked him to come inside, not as a date, she'd clarified quickly, but as backup. Her regular bodyguard had called in sick that morning. The timing hadn't sat right with Nathan. Coincidences rarely did. Still, he followed her inside wearing the only suit he owned. Now that jacket was likely ruined with champagne and blood as the poison worked its way through his system. His throat tightened, the edges of his vision blurred. The slap hit him hard, snapping his head sideways. Olivia's voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd, sharp with humiliation and rage, demanding to know what was wrong with him as 200 people stared at the spectacle of her driver kissing her like a man on the verge of drowning. Nathan grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit, gripping harder than he meant to as she resisted. His tongue felt swollen, numb. When he spoke, the words came out thick and slurred, telling her they needed to talk. Immediately, something in his voice must have broken through her anger, because she stopped fighting and followed him into the hallway. The heavy doors shut behind them, muting the chaos. The corridor was empty, lined with gold-framed mirrors reflecting their figures endlessly. Nathan leaned against the wall, fighting nausea. Olivia stood a few feet away, arms crossed, waiting for an explanation that justified what he'd done. She gave him 10 seconds before threatening to call the police. He forced the words out, telling her the champagne had been poisoned. She stared at him in disbelief. He explained about the waiter, the way he moved, the look in his eyes. There hadn't been time to knock the glass away, so he'd done the only thing he could. He gestured clumsily between their mouths, the memory of the kiss still hanging in the air. She laughed sharply, calling it insane, but her voice wavered, doubt slipping through. She was smart, smarter than most people realized. She'd run a multi-billion-dollar company for 6 months without a major misstep, and she knew how to read people. Right now, she was reading him. Nathan stepped into the light and told her to look at him. His lips were swelling, turning an angry red. Blisters had formed at the corners of his mouth, and one eye watered uncontrollably. Her expression shifted from fury to fear, recognition dawning as she whispered his name in disbelief. She reached for him, then hesitated. She said they needed a hospital. He shook his head, the hallway tilting in response. Not yet. He asked about the waiter. She was already pulling out her phone, dialing emergency services, but he caught her wrist gently this time. He warned her that if she called now, whoever had poisoned the drink would vanish and try again later. His vision darkened at the edges. He asked her to trust him for 5 minutes. After a long pause, she agreed, 5 minutes, then the hospital, and demanded to know who he really was, because drivers didn't talk the way he did. He knew she'd figure it out eventually. He'd just hoped it would be under different circumstances. They found the waiter's jacket stuffed into a trash bin near the service entrance. No man, no ID, just a uniform and a name tag that read, David. Olivia checked the staff directory and confirmed no one by that name was working the event. She looked at Nathan differently now, seeing past the uniform. She asked how he'd known. Leaning against the wall, hands trembling, Nathan finally told her the truth. He'd worked Secret Service, presidential detail. He'd been trained to read threats, to read people. He'd left 3 years earlier after his wife died in a car accident, leaving him alone with a daughter and a schedule that no longer worked. It was true, mostly. He didn't mention the investigation into his wife's death or the unanswered questions that still haunted him. He also didn't mention that Olivia's father had contacted him 2 weeks before he died, asking for someone he could trust, someone outside the family. Olivia processed the information with calm focus, concluding that her father had hired Nathan personally. Nathan confirmed it. The arrangement had been designed to look ordinary. As the poison dragged him closer to unconsciousness, Nathan told her to make a call, not to emergency services. He gave her a number and instructed her carefully on what to say. She dialed without hesitation. When the call ended, she told him help would arrive in 20 minutes. Someone was on the way. She knelt beside him, holding his hand, telling him to stay with her and asking about his daughter. Nathan spoke slowly now, describing Sophie, 7 years old, 2nd grade, dreaming of becoming a veterinarian, with her mother's eyes and laugh. When Olivia asked about his wife, he repeated the official story, because the truth was too complicated and he didn't have the breath for it. She told him she was sorry, and he heard sincerity in her voice, the shared understanding of loss. The door at the end of the hallway opened, and a woman in a dark suit approached with a medical bag. Dr. Sarah Mitchell moved efficiently, checking his vitals and asking questions. Nathan described the symptoms as best he could while she prepared an IV. She listed possible poisons and began treatment immediately. Olivia explained everything she remembered about the drink. As the medication flowed into his veins, Nathan heard fragments. Blood work, observation, lucky. Lucky. If he hadn't been watching, Olivia would be the one on the floor. He forced out a description of the waiter, urging them to find him. Olivia ordered security to lock down the building and check the footage. Sarah stabilized Nathan but insisted he needed a hospital. Nathan asked for 10 more minutes. Olivia was still in danger. After some hesitation, Sarah agreed. When Olivia returned, she demanded the full truth. Nathan told her about her father's suspicions, the embezzlement, the 2 names he'd narrowed it down to before he died. Olivia connected the dots quickly, understanding the pattern. When Nathan named Richard Bartlett and David Sutton, she paced, weighing the implications. One of them had likely hired a professional. They needed safety and access to her father's files. Olivia revealed she had a complete digital archive at her apartment and cancelled the rest of the evening. With Sarah's help, Nathan stood. Together, they avoided the ballroom and reached the garage. Olivia took the keys and drove, navigating traffic with practiced skill. Nathan watched the mirrors, fighting nausea, while Sarah monitored him from the back seat. As the city lights passed, the truth settled in. This night had changed everything, and it was only the beginning.